So, Ethan Klein and his producer Dan are in some hot water this week. Before we start, I do want to say that I am a huge fan of the HG podcast. I have been watching for about 2 years now, and I watch almost every episode. I enjoy it greatly. I love the crew, love Ethan, but some stuff went down last week that, some fans and I are not too happy with. So last week on HDTV, they had a segment where they were making fun of James Charles for buying diapers, which was revealed accidentally by James when he was making a video discussing his Amazon purchases. Like, it was right there. I'll show a picture. And rightfully so. Like, that man is horrible. He deserves to be in jail, not on the internet. It's not even funny, but the reason people got upset is when Ethan started talking about and stereotyping gay men and their roles and started assuming their roles and positions in bed based on the way they act, they talk, or they dress, how they dress. He went on this huge tangent about power bottoms and completely mystified it. To add on to the flames, a viewer called in to educate Ethan on why those stereotypes could be harmful to the community, that it's messed up to assume someone's preference based on how they act, and to educate them on a topic they clearly knew nothing about, honestly. Ethan listened to the caller, yet said he didn't see his point about the stereotyping and how it could be harmful, and that it was just a joke. He then asked the caller, who was a gay man, about his role and preference in bed, to which the caller said he prefers not to comment on. Ethan said, yeah, that's okay, that's valid, you don't have to answer. But then he said, can I guess though? I think I can guess it right. If I guessed, would you tell me if I'm right?
So would you consider yourself a top or a bottom, or you don't do that, the labels?
And I mean this with all peace and love and with respect, Ethan. It's none of your business.
But you have a preference one way or the other?
But that's another dangerous assumption too.
Can I guess?
A lot of gay men don't.
You tell me if it's right, if I guess right?
No.
Well, you know what? I'm not going to get into it, Matt. But we all know which one you prefer.
And the viewer said, with peace and love, that's none of your business, which was iconic. If you're a fan of the show, that's a recurring soundbite by of Ringo Starr saying he's too busy to sign autographs. That was funny from Matt, the caller. But that's just messed up to say. The viewer was calling in to inform Ethan that, hey, don't do this, don't assume people's roles and preferences. That's not appropriate, that's not nice. And then Ethan he's joking, fans of the show know that he jokes, and I don't think he means bad by it, but he just goes too far. He's crossing so many boundaries that the caller said that he doesn't want to talk about this, but nevertheless, Ethan doubled down and pushed on. That was not nice. Anyway, the call was requested by Ethan in order to educate himself on LGBTQ plus terms. He said, whoever wants to talk about this, call. I'll take the call. We'll discuss this.
Colin, if you have a problem with my character,
you got it right. I mean, you literally got it right.
What a power bottom was.
Yeah.
But he turned it into a weird personal call about Matt's sex habits. That completely was not the reason why Matt called in. He just called in to contribute and educate the crew, and specifically Ethan, about what he was talking about. Matt didn't call in to discuss that. He told Ethan multiple times he didn't want to discuss it, and Ethan just started insinuating that he knew Matt's preferences based solely on his voice. That was very uncomfortable to watch and just disrespectful, honestly. He was also interrupting Matt a lot, the caller, which he usually does, and as a viewer, I got secondhand embarrassment from it. It also didn't help that the call is slightly delayed. So because on HGTV they always have viewers call in, and that's fun. But Ethan has this habit of interrupting callers all the time. when they call in, like the callers are barely able to get their point across in the first chunk of the call. Like the first chunk of the call, when you watch, it's always like it's just Ethan assuming their point, like why they called him. Like there's one line that Ethan sees before, like a description of what the caller is going to talk about before he accepts the call. And the first chunk of the video is just him like assuming, and the caller is like trying to either agreeing with it or saying no, wait, that's not my point. But there is a slight delay in the call, and Ethan just goes on and on and on and barely lets the viewer talk, like the caller talk. Like at the end, most of the time, like that's resolved. The viewer gets a chance to tell their point, but the first chunk of the video is always Ethan talking, and interrupting actively, which is not a good trait. So I don't think he means to interrupt them, but I just feel like he's so like scared and afraid of dead air caused by the slight delay that we talked about. So he just talks and talks. I hope he realizes he doesn't have to like always fill in the silence and say something, But the amount of disrespect and inappropriate pushing during the conversation with Matt literally made my jaw drop. Honestly, I have so much respect for Matt for keeping his composure and patience throughout the call. Like, he handled it very well, and he later on said he wasn't offended because he is a fan of the show. So am I. But just what happened, I didn't agree with. It was so disrespectful, and if I was in that situation, I would be so, I don't know, anxious about it all. And this episode was just, as I said, so frustrating as a whole. Like, you can't just say, I'm just trying to learn, and then be dismissive and joke when someone's trying to educate you, like Matt was. I understand this is a comedic podcast, and I enjoy it, but it's hypocritical when Ethan and the crew pick apart something a creator said, something problematic that a creator said, but then call people sensitive when it's their turn to get called out.
I do think some of y'all are way too fucking sensitive for the show. To be totally honest, like people in this thread who are saying they're grossed out and whatever, I think this with peace and love, you might be too sensitive to watch this show. If you're watching this show and you're perpetually offended by things I'm saying, you may want to just stop watching. Like, genuinely, like. Does get annoying with some of y'all getting offended all the time.
Like, it's something problematic you said, and the viewers and your fans essentially want to correct you and want you to be better. So, yeah, it's very hypocritical. Dan also got extremely heated during this episode, yelling at fans and telling them to shut up and unsubscribe. That was just so uncalled for.
Apologies to whatever his name was. Apparently I was homophobic to him. But whatever. What can you do? People say it was gross and disappointing. Saying you can guess if Matt is a power bottom by his voice is so gross. But I was right. That was the point. Wasn't I? He admitted.
Yeah, of course you were right. And honestly, just so over these fucking people. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. It's a fucking entertaining show. Shut the fuck up.
Someone says, I don't know what's up.
So disappointing.
Someone said,
grow up. Jesus fucking Christ.
Dan.
I don't know what's up with Ethan today, but something's off. Bad vibes this episode.
Shut the fuck up. Unsubscribe. Go away. Jesus Christ.
Someone said, it sometimes feels like Ethan thinks LGBTQ plus people are exotic or something. It's super uncomfy. Yeah, I think y'all need to fucking... Do you think it's hard for a straight person to understand how it feels to always have people define you by how you prefer sex? Is that a valid criticism?
No, I'm so fucking frustrated with these people.
Get the fuck out!
Just
So wait,
shut the
what was
fuck
I...
up.
Where did I even...
But in the episode following this one, they apologized and agreed that Ethan's comments and pushing was very inappropriate. But they completely shut down the comments and criticisms of people calling them homophobic.
You guys got to fucking like understand how intense it feels on this side when every week people are turning something we said into evidence that we are intolerant pieces of shit, you know? Or it's always like, oh, the veil is down. I always knew they were racist homophobes. Oh, we can't pretend now to be woke and all this shit. And Dan is fucking sick of that shit. And understandably, and we all are. So his snap judgment is like, you know, fuck you guys, just shut up. And, you know, people are calling me homophobic. Dan knows I'm not homophobic. Okay, he's standing up for me, which he's being a good friend and a good a supporter. So, you know, so I totally understand Dan's reaction to say, you know, just shut the fuck up and unsubscribe, which, you know, obviously he was heated at the moment. But
Too heated.
Too heated, okay. But understandably, you know, it's not, sometimes it just doesn't feel reasonable with the woke whiplash we get. And I understand, because, like, I'm sorry, but me and Dan both know we're not homophobic, okay? And I refused that title. I do, outright, for both of us. It's just not the case.
I completely agree with Ethan and Dan on them disagreeing with being labeled homophobic. Like, from the beginning of me watching the show, I never got any, like, homophobic vibes, or, like, they never gave off those vibes. And in fact, they have been, like, continuous allies for the LGBTQ plus community. But the previous video was definitely laced with homophobic undertones, that I believe were not meant to be harmful, but ended up being so in the end. The H3TV video following after that, he said that they do not have sponsors on that video, and that brands have decided to not work with them anymore. Ethan took this time to thank the members of the channel for supporting them, and that they are the reason that the show can go on, and he encouraged fans to become members and pay a monthly subscription.
Today we have no sponsors because I am an existential threat to gay rights and all progress. So, of course, our wonderful fans have taken it upon themselves to write over our sponsors and to have them not sponsor or not to support us. So we are, I'm very, you know, I'll just say this. I'm very thankful to our members. Now's the time, and the reason I say that is to thank our wonderful members who support the show by becoming members, because it makes this show kind of bulletproof to stuff like this, even though it's painful and emotionally, it's just painful that, you know, people would do that. There it is. And, you know, the other thing is, like, you expect a little more of the sponsors in a way, but I get it. You know, it's just transactional for them. But, you know, I feel like I put so much into our good partners, and it's kind of crazy when they just drop you like a bag of dirt when over some bullshit. But there you go. I want to encourage you guys, if you love the show and you want to support us and you don't want to get, you know, you want to help us weather stuff like this, then it's a good time to become a sponsor or a member, actually, right? So thank you, peace and love, and thank you to all the members. Love you guys. Appreciate that so much.
See, this wouldn't have been an issue. Like, this is their job. This is how they make a living. But the problem is that the episode following right after that one where they weren't sponsored, the episode after that was sponsored by Honey, which is huge. So how can you ask fans to become members and support you? Because, like, that's the only way to support the channel, and that's how they can keep going. Since they don't have sponsors anymore, but then the next episode be sponsored and get a lot of money. I think that was just a business move on their part to gain back the numbers they lost from the previous controversy of being called homophobic and stuff. A lot of members unsubscribed and left the podcast. So that was a business move on their part. It was kind of shitty to, like, not be transparent if it was a permanent thing that the sponsors left them, or was it, like, just a temporary, momentary thing. And even so, just one episode and then the next one you're already sponsored. Like, just be transparent with your audience. Like, that's all we ask for. And at the end of the day, I believe both Ethan and Dan are, like, good men, and they have no hate in their hearts. Like, people make mistakes all the time, and they can use that to learn and grow, but I, along with fans of the show, did not like the way like, they handled themselves, honestly. And especially, like, when Ethan got all emotional and defensive when being called out. Like, he calls out people and creators for problematic behavior left and right, but you kind of have to learn to deal with it when the finger is pointed at you. So the best thing he could have done was to agree and apologize, like, even if he wasn't aware of how personal, like, that line of questioning was. but like people pointed it out to him, and he should have acknowledged that he shouldn't have made the comments that he did, and yeah, like I understand that embarrassing feeling you get when you're being called out, like especially in public, you know, like you have to address it, you have to learn and grow like in the public eye, you know? That's understandable, but just the way that he got so defensive was not ideal. And I like the fact that Dan owned up to his mistakes and he apologized, which is like amazing. So Dan is great. Dan is good. And personally, I just think that we need Olivia back immediately. Like, she's the rock in this whole podcast and the crew. I love her. And yeah, those are my thoughts on this situation.